Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dream Dynamics, and we're back again with another AI versus a guy. We've continued with one of the ideas that we had post the initial comparison. We've taken one of those prompts which I wrote. I've taken one of those prompts which I wrote, and I've gotten the AI to write the first scene with about a minute of dialogue. And I've written one at the same time prior to seeing what the AI wrote. And today we're going to see what the differences are, see if you can guess which one is which, and see what it says.
I'm hoping this is obvious, and I'm hoping it's easy, but I suspect it'll be slightly more difficult. But I think there will be the same markers that we saw last time, where it's... The problem is there's not going to be more than one, but I think it will be pretty clear what it's doing well and what it's not.
Yeah.
So, let's take a listen and a look at the first script. Interior, apartment, living room, day. The sun peeps around a cloud and begins to fill the city apartment with light. As the cloud moves away and reveals more of the sun, the light bathes more and more of the room. Beginning with the brickwork on the entrance wall, disturbed only by the crystal white sideboard covered in old letters and a clean bowl of keys. The light begins to illuminate the rug, lay at an angle under the sofa. The previous night's pizza box glistens as the sun catches the grease. Eventually, it makes its way to the sofa, gently warming its occupant's legs. Liam, 24, stirs as his body begins to wake, as if photosynthesizing. His legs barely covered by the shorts and the dressing gown he is using as a blanket. His dark brown hair begins to tickle his growing conscious face. The sun finally begins to bask his face in the light of the day, giving him a rather rude awakening. Squinting and holding his hand up to cover the light, Liam sits up and looks at his watch. Resigning that it likely is time to get dressed, he walks over to the window groggily. Opening the window, the apartment suddenly comes to life. The hum of the city below echoes through the apartment. The fairly spacious lounge filled with noise, the peace of the surroundings broken by the morning traffic. David, 24, a slender man in his jeans and a plain white tee, casually enters into the apartment, barely addressing his lazily dressed housemate. Hey. Liam turns around shocked to see his housemate has already been out and come back.
Did you do your normal routine around me this morning?
Yeah, well, I couldn't watch the news as usual as I didn't want to wake you, but I got the main headlines from my phone. David continues to unpack the bag as he talks to Liam. Vegetables and pastries in brown paper, as well as an item wrapped in a few pieces of newspaper. This catches Liam's attention.
I know you miss home, but I didn't realise you were adding a portion of chips to your morning haul.
David pauses. Looking at the package, Liam is possessing to unwrap, trying to recall how he came into possession of this mysterious item, or even what it is. Oh yeah, no. You know, the thrift store Gabby is always going on about, well, the door was open and I walked past on my way back, so I went inside.
Please tell me you didn't steal...
Liam finishes unwrapping the item. In his hand, he holds a golden engraved and hand-sized spyglass.
A mini telescope?
Is a spyglass a no? It only costs like $20.
$20 for a useless antique?
It's not useless, it works, I think. Without needing any further encouragement, Liam smiles and waltzes over to the sofa where he begins to look through the spyglass and the other apartments. With the spyglass removed from his vicinity, David's enthrallment in it wades, almost immediately allowing him to continue putting away the groceries. After a moment, Liam's gaze through the spyglass becomes transfixed on one window. His excited and childlike demeanour vanishes and is replaced by one of confusion and a growing terror.
Dave? Come look at this. I need to know if I'm not seeing things.
What's up? David nonchalantly wanders over and joins his friend on the sofa, confused at the sudden mood swing. You okay? Has the pizza done a number on your stomach?
The third window down, fifth across. in the building directly opposite. Girl with the yellow skirt.
David, worried, looks at his friend as he takes the spyglass and peers through it. Suddenly, his expression follows the same path as Liam's, confusion with a growing terror.
You see it? What the hell?
No idea. Why is she glowing like that? Shit!
What?
She's looking straight at me, like she can see what we're doing.
Look somewhere else!
Immediately, David moves the sight to another window. The terror continues to grow. Dude, there's more! Loads more! How he is now darting from window to window.
What do you mean, more?
In loads of the rooms, there's the same random people, glowing eyes, staring right back at me.
What?
Suddenly there is a knock at the door. The street below then appears to have fallen silent. The duo freeze. Eyes transfixed on the door. Another knock only serves to jolt them into looking at each other, searching for one another to come up with a logical explanation. The door handles begin to turn, and the door unlocks. Interesting. I'm just gonna say it straight. Gut instinct says that is AI.
Okay.
Oh, no. Gut instinct says that's you.
Right.
Because there's typos.
What?
There's a couple of words that just don't make sense. Where was the interesting one? One of the words was... It was Wayne's. The word should be Wayne's, but it says Wade's. And I wonder if that is... and I'm not actually 100% certain that's a you mistake. David's enthrallment in it, Wade's. It should say Wayne's, I'm assuming. But I don't know for certain if it's not just written badly by an AI. In terms of what happens, the reason I would say it is AI is because that's the exact prompt.
So it breaks down the prompt.
But
exactly. Okay.
The whole bit at the start isn't the prompt. And that's where I feel like it shows it's not AI, is beginning with the brickwork on the entrance hall, disturbed by the crystal white sideboard.
So you believe that the
don't,
world building isn't
know,
an AI thing?
I've not seen the other one yet.
Well,
I believe... I would expect the AI not to world build, and it would write you a script exactly as the prompt. And the prompt would not include what he was doing before they found the spyglass.
So... Okay, so that's quite interesting. So your thought process is that basically, like we found before with the given the different prompts, it was all plot, not story. It didn't give emotion. Just like this, there's not a lived-in world that occurred beforehand.
And this has a...
No, that's what I'm saying. So
yeah, this has the
AI
world.
wouldn't have this lived-in world beforehand.
No, and it just... It adds things that I don't think add anything to the script. So,
like embellishments kind of thing.
Well, like the thing about chips and
okay.
reminding you of home is a very specific thing that it doesn't if it doesn't relate to the prompt, I don't think it will be creative enough to do this. So like I some of it reads like it's just too wordy, it's just too descriptive. Like the pizza box glistening in the grease, glistening as the light catches the grease. That makes me think AI who would write in a script about pizza box, but then I'd be like, there's no way AI would write about that, so that must be a human terrible choice. No offense.
I'm gonna take offense.
You should take offense. It's not terrible, it's really irrelevant, but like the sentence eventually makes its way to the sofa, gently warming its occupant's legs, felt like it was about to become an alien. It felt like an alien was the one sitting there.
Because it said occupant rather
Because it says its occupant's legs, which feels deliberately... But again, it feels deliberately deceptive. And again, I don't think an AI has any deliberateness about it. I think it literally just re-extrapolates words that it understands together.
Okay.
Equally, it understood the brief perfectly, and I anticipate, having not seen it yet, the second one is not going to understand the brief perfectly.
Okay.
That would be my guess. And there's going to be something in the brief it doesn't get. If not, I'm screwed. There's going to be something in the brief it just doesn't understand. Like, the spyglass or glowing eyes or something where it becomes like the spyglass. Is it going to make it into a James Bond thing? Sort of idea. It just misconstrues the language.
Okay. I completely understand where you're coming from with that. It'll be interesting to see what your thoughts are following this next bit. To see if your opinion changes, or to see if even what you're pointing out as, oh no, this is definitely a human trait compared to this.
Yeah, I'm really worried now, because if this is AI... Because I'm currently leaning towards this one being human, so we shall see.
Cool.
All right, let's take a look at the next clip. Interior, apartment, day. The camera pans across a cluttered living room of a small New York apartment. The place is a chaotic mix of second-hand furniture, old books, and random gadgets. A lazy fan rotates on the ceiling, barely moving the thick summer air. In the background, we hear the faint sound of traffic and the distant hum of the city. David, mid-20s, quirky, always the odd one out, bursts through the door, holding a dusty, old spyglass, triumphantly above his head. His best friend, Liam, mid-20s, sarcastic, more grounded, is sprawled out on the couch, engrossed in a video game. David, grinning. Dude, you will never believe what I just scored at the thrift shop. Liam glances up, barely interested, then does a double take when he sees the spyglass. Liam, skeptical.
A spyglass? Really, David? What are you, a pirate now?
David, excitedly. This isn't just any spyglass, man. This is ancient. Look at the craftsmanship. David holds it out, gesturing for Liam to take a closer look. Liam sighs, pausing his game, and reluctantly sits up. He takes the spyglass, examining it with a raised eyebrow. Liam, sarcastic.
Yeah, sure, it's a real treasure. How much did you waste on that thing?
David, shrugging. $20? Liam, tossing it back.
$20 for a relic of disappointment?
David isn't deterred. He walks over to the large window that overlooks the neighbouring apartment block. The windows opposite them reveal glimpses of their neighbours' lives. People cooking, watching TV and lounging around. David, casually. Come on, don't be such a killjoy. Let's see if this baby still works. Liam, rolling his eyes, gets up and joins David at the window. David extends the spyglass and peers through it, adjusting the focus. Liam watches, still unimpressed. Liam, playful.
If you see a ship, let me know. I've always wanted to steal some booty.
David laughs, but then suddenly stops. His face tightens in concentration as he spots something unusual through the spyglass. David, hushed. No way. Check this out. Liam, curious despite himself, takes the spyglass from David and looks through. The camera zooms in on what he sees, the window of a girl across the street, just getting up from her desk. Liam, casual.
What? Just some girl, man? You're freaking out over nothing again.
But as the girl moves closer to her window, something changes. Her skin begins to emit a faint glow, like a soft halo of light surrounding her. Then, in an instant, she turns her head and looks directly at them. Her eyes are unnervingly bright, locking it onto Liam through the spyglass. Liam, startled.
What the hell?
He jerks back from the spyglass, almost dropping it. David quickly grabs it and peers through again, his hands shaking slightly. David, whispering, No way, that's not normal. What? That can't be normal. Liam paces the room, his mind racing. Liam trying to rationalise.
Maybe it's a reflection or some weird lighting trick. It's gotta be.
David, undeterred, starts scanning the other windows. As he looks through the spyglass, the camera cuts to different windows, revealing more and more glowing figures, each one more unsettling than the last. Some are alone, others in groups, but all of them have the same eerie glow. David's breathing quickens. David, whispering, terrified. Liam, there's more of them. There's a lot more of them. Liam snatches the spyglass again, looking through and seeing the same inexplicable phenomenon. He lowers the spyglass, his face pale. Liam, panicked.
This is... we need to call someone. The cops. No, they'll think we're crazy. Who the hell do we even call?
Suddenly there's a loud, insistent knock at the door. Both of them freeze, their eyes snapping to the door. The knock comes again, harder this time. Liam, whispering.
Did you invite anyone over?
David, shaking his head. No one. They exchange a tense glance. The atmosphere is thick with fear and uncertainty. David slowly lowers the spyglass, the room seeming darker now. Another knock, this time louder and more impatient. Their world, just moments ago filled with mundane concerns, is now teetering on the edge of the unknown. David swallows hard, taking a tentative step towards the door. Liam, trying to steady his breathing, follows close behind. The camera zooms in on the doorknob as David's hand hovers over it, trembling. David, whispering, whoever it is, I don't think they're here to borrow sugar. He reaches out, gripping the doorknob with a shaky hand. As he begins to turn it, the screen cuts to black. The sound of the door creaking open echoes in the darkness, followed by the distant sound of footsteps approaching. Title card. Beholden. Well. Okay, immediate thoughts.
Yeah.
First things that stand out to me, this has actual filmic references. So it talks about camera angles. Mm-hmm. It talks about, it says like title card right at the end. Mm-hmm. It gives stage directions to every line. Now, the one thing that I think is odd, I don't read a lot of film scripts. That's every single line, which seems wrong. Mm-hmm. That seems too much.
Okay.
There were none in the first script. Uh-huh. There are now only them. So
there are big standout differences in how the two scripts are written.
Yeah, but I'm looking at the main thing that I feel is different is there is no characterization of David and Liam beyond the first description.
Yeah.
There is, and actually, let me read that again. Sarcastic, more grounded. Oh no, okay, Liam is the more grounded one. So it tracks. I would say Liam appears more grounded throughout the script.
Yeah.
I would say David isn't not grounded, though. It feels like an odd distinction to make in this script contextually, because David seems to get worried before Liam gets worried. Mm-hmm. Liam's just dismissive of it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they feel like the same person.
Okay.
I think if you swapped all their lines of dialogue and gave the same character descriptions, other than the fact he brings a spyglass home, you wouldn't go, that's insane.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this will come down to what the prompt is. Mm-hmm. And I think knowing that enlightens it. I say that because of the reference to a title, two, and I'm trying to, before we talk about the prompt, I'm trying to think back to last time we recorded, and what am I trying to say? What the story it created was, because I think it very specifically said in the story about them reaching out and grabbing the door handle. I remember something. I remember something. It feels, but the bottom one feels more specific. The top one feels like, based on my memory, this is a script I could write. The bottom one feels like, here is the prompt I was very specifically given.
So this was the actual
Before
prompt.
we get to the prompt, I have a couple more things. Before you tell that, I just want to put all my cards on the table and embarrass myself. There is a reference to the glowing. In the first script, it is eyes. Mm-hmm. In the second script, it is not. It just appears they are glowing, which I thought was an interesting distinction.
Yep.
Again, is that AI misunderstanding? Because I don't think it would get to eyes unless the prompt says glowing eyes.
Right.
Because I feel like, why would it? If it says they glow, in films people glow, that's fine. That's an acceptable concept. It didn't have to compensate. Yep. So if it compensated to the eyes, That feels like it's being creative. Go on, tell me the prompt.
So
at the moment, I'm saying AI is the second one.
Okay.
I still believe the first one is real.
So the prompt was, and then I'll quickly discuss some things that you've said there. So the prompt was, write the opening scene to a film where this is the brief, include at least 1 minute of dialogue.
Okay.
When David came back with an old spyglass from the thrift shop, Liam couldn't understand why his best friend would buy something so pointless. But when they were using it in their New York apartment to spy on the girls in the block opposite, they got the shock of their life. Most of the girls looked normal, but one suddenly glowed and looked straight at them.
Yep.
Believing it was a one-off, they decided to survey the other apartments. They spotted more and more of the glowing beings and began to panic. Suddenly, a knock at the door pulled them out. Their life was about to take the turn for the mythical.
I spotted a second thing. Wait, what was that last bit again?
Suddenly a knock at the...
Suddenly a knock at the door.
The knock at the door pulled them out. Their life was about to take a turn for the mythical.
Two things.
Yep.
I think I'm right about the glowing.
Okay.
It says glowing generally.
It does.
The second I heard that in the script,
Yep.
that just stood out to me as a distinct difference between the two. One is glowing.
Yeah.
One's eyes are glowing.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the person did... I say person, you. Maybe you did the glowing person, but I just don't think the AI would stray. The second, which if you have something to say first, say it, because I think this is my silver bullet of I'm locked in.
No, so the only thing I was going to say is we'll reveal the correct answer. I've got a lot to say after once it's revealed which one's which. So go ahead.
My silver bullet is New York apartment.
Okay.
Because the first one doesn't reference New York at all. Mm-hmm. Broadly, but not specifically. It references a city. Whereas the second one very specifically says, and it felt weird when it says it, it says, the camera pans across a cluttered living room of a small New York apartment. And it felt weird hearing it the second time because it's just not referenced in the first. And I couldn't remember that being part. So it could be person, it could be AI. But with it being in a prompt, that's AI.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty confident the second one is AI. I'm locked in. That's my final guess.
Okay.
Go on.
So
Let's discuss.
you are completely correct. The second one was, and you are right. Pointing out those things is probably where I would have gone. Yes, that's where you can tell the difference. Now, there's a couple of things that I found interesting through my training, purely because, so obviously, as a screenwriter, you're consuming movies constantly. But whenever you're writing anything, even from a prompt, you're trying to think slightly outside the box. The glowing eyes, for me, was a natural reaction to this person is glowing. And I went, visually, an entire person glowing looks a bit weird. How can I do that differently? And I didn't consciously think about that. And I think the thing I also want to say is I didn't go back and edit any of this. So I just like the AI would, read it once and then wrote. And it was only afterwards I realised I hadn't included the New York apartment. I'd subconsciously decided it's in New York.
Yeah.
And the two guys were British, hence why it was written in my dialect. I didn't want to write it with an American dialect. I didn't want to do that. So I went, the two guys were British, hence the home and chips.
I'll tell you what threw me off the British.
Yeah.
Because I was sort of there, but the $20.
Yeah, so it was still set in America.
British.
It was still set in America. Now, I did find it funny as well. So I wrote that separately to the AI. Apparently, antique spyglasses are just worth $20.
Oh, yeah. That's weird. It's weird and specific. I didn't even clock that they were the same amount of money. I didn't even notice.
No, it's just weird. Now, the thing I noticed, and the thing that immediately, upon reading it with the training, I'd have realised that's the AI, is the way in which it's written. Now, this may be my training, and also I think it depends on how or who you're writing a script for. You don't usually include camera movements. You don't usually include
those are director's choices.
Director's choice. So a script writer shouldn't be making those decisions.
So I didn't even make that leap.
Yeah.
I just thought, because I don't read a lot of scripts, so I just thought maybe that's better. But it was something that I noticed as a distinct point of difference. I would also say, on a difference, the way it structures the dialogue.
Yeah.
very difficult to record. It was because it goes from stage directions, not that they're stage directions, directions to dialogue, directions to dialogue, directions to dialogue, directions to dialogue. It doesn't stay in dialogue for any length of time, despite some of the stage direction not really adding anything, or almost just being, well, we can't have them say another thing before we've had another stage direction. So it almost doesn't let them talk. They don't have a conversation that isn't really, really broken up.
Yeah. Now, the thing I noticed as well, and the thing I think will be interesting to now when I say this to you, to see if you think the same thing, I actually think the second one technically reads better. Now, the reason why I say that is the way in which you're supposed to write scripts. You are writing for a producer, for a director. Yes, you want it to be easy to read, but it's mainly just visuals. You're writing everything you see. If you want to write something that someone's feeling, you need to show the emotion somehow. Or if you want to write the way in which someone is, say, sarcastic, for example, rather than writing this person is sarcastic, you have to show it, because, well, the way in which I was taught anyway is, well, if you're having to tell people that they're sarcastic, they're not actually being sarcastic.
Yeah.
It's that sort of thought process. Now, the way in which they wrote the script reads really well because it's very story level. I think this is where it's different to how prompt worked and when we did the prompts last time. It felt more like it was adding descriptors that weren't visual. He's quirky, the beginning to panic sort of thing. And actually, go for it.
It reads very much, and this was part of a different conversation we had, but it reads very much like a book.
Yeah.
I've just found the bit that said, David swallows hard, taking a tentative step toward the door. Liam, trying to steady his breathing, follows close behind. If you take those two sentences and put them in a novel, that is perfect.
Yeah.
If I compare that to the first one, I'm trying to find an example that really clearly shows.
I think the one you could look for is, without needing any further encouragement, Liam smiles and waltzes over to the sofa where he begins to look through the spyglass at the other apartment. It's distinct. This is actually what happens rather than the emotion behind it.
In your one, it's the emotion, or it's
no. In my one, it's this action rather than
it's direction rather than emotive. It's not telling me about the characters, it's telling me what the characters did. I think there's a weird thing when we're doing this about the AI. There's a reaction, and the only one I got wrong, if I recall last time, was the trick question where they were both AI.
You were umming and ahhing about a few of them though, and I think it was...
No, but the one thing that's getting me about all of them is reading it, and if you're listening at home, you might feel the same way. There is genuinely a distinct clarity that I'm not quite verbalising, having done this twice now, that reads just very, very differently. I'm picking out lots of things that I'm seeing. I'm saying there's AI-looking things in the human one and human-looking things in the AI one. But there's something that when reading it through clicks quite quickly. And I think it's... And I'll potentially will have to come back to this idea, but there is a hollowness in the AI scripts that is visceral, that is so blatant. It's the uncanny valley of writing. Yeah. There is something, while on paper, if I put two of these next to each other and showed them to most people, they'd go, they're both scripts. But sitting here and reading it and really trying to feel both scripts, understand both scripts, there is something uncanny about the AI. It was the same with the prompts last week. I ummed and ahed, but I never went wrong. Which feels weird. And on my last one, I was saying I didn't know because my gut was telling me they're both the same. I couldn't work out whether they're both AI or both that, but that was the one I was most stuck on because I just genuinely couldn't pick apart what that was. And there's some feeling that I'm getting when I'm reading Miss AI, when I'm reading through that script, when I'm hearing it, when I'm seeing it, that is not human. That doesn't have And I think some of it is emotion.
I think a little bit's a creative decision, though. I think the glowing eyes is a nice little marker, though. I think because it's that here's an idea and your brain will go in 50 directions and it'll pick one of them. Whereas I feel like the AI will take every option and find almost the average. I found it really interesting on this point that they added a title card at the end of it. Because what obviously the AI did, it went opening scene. What happens at the end of opening scenes across all movies? Oh,
yeah,
90% of them have a title card. Well, mine should have the end of a title card.
True.
The thing is, though, for me, I made the creative decision that, well, this isn't the end of this scene. It just carries on into a different location. Yeah. And as such,
it's not quite the end.
It's not the end. They went opening scene, end, start, one nice, neat box.
I think all these markers help. And they, like I said with Silver Bullet, the New York thing consolidated in my mind. But there is something, just seeing it. Reading that first one, I felt like, this feels weird. Is this AI? Glistening grease on the pizza box. But I was reluctant to say this is AI because it didn't feel like AI. And I was wondering, genuinely, internally, for context, this is a real, genuine reaction. I have not read these. I actually don't know. And I'm fascinated by the way I am responding to AI. I'm fascinated that I am, at some subconscious level, regardless of the markers, just noticing it.
It's also...
and again, it's the feeling that you get when you read it. And I would love, I suspect you're going to hear more from this topic, to carry on looking at really what it is. And I don't think it's any of the markers we're pointing out. I think they just are the easy things to spot.
Yeah.
I think there's something in the linguistics and the, I don't want to say structure, but the structure of a language, the way it uses words, it doesn't use them with value. It uses them by accident. And it's almost like it uses words, but not with the weight of what that word means behind it. It's like a thesaurus. Yeah. It's when you're a kid and you use a thesaurus to do an essay because it makes your essay look better, but you can read that essay back and it reads hollow because those words aren't yours. Yeah. They're not its words. That's it. That's the best way I can
and I think it's like in the decision. I think it's interesting to say the last line of theirs is comedy. The decision of a creative person, say I wrote that, it would be a very purposeful decision to end a very tense part of a scene with a comedic line. And whereas with theirs, it almost feels like a pass away. We need him to say something. What is he going to say?
I feel like it thinks it's doing something. The AI that can't think, but it's trying to do something with that the audience would expect. And if you think this AI would have been trained on films, but its modern reference for successful films, if you will, are, to use a big example, things like Marvel films, but would have big tense moments like this broken by one-liners.
Yeah.
And I think it has taken that exact approach because that is what it understands to be a tense scene. Because while tense scenes exist, and I'm sure it has been fed many scripts of them, what it will deem new or successful or appropriate or relevant is this style. And that is why it is put in there. Because that is what tense is now. Today in 2024. If you look, not obviously everything, but that is what is in the general consciousness as successful. If you look at in the past or in specific genres, that won't exist. But it didn't. Did it have a genre?
Nope. That prompt was literally
that's what there wasn't a genre in the prompt, so it could have written any type of film. But it understood that there was tension, but it didn't see the need to sustain that tension in a horror type way. It felt the need to break it because.
The interesting thing I found is on one of these markers that we were talking about, and on that sort of like tone and theme guideline, is that right at the end of the prompt it says take a turn for the mythical. Because when I wrote that prompt, I was thinking 50 steps ahead of myself and thinking of where I wanted the story to go. And I didn't want it to be a adventure. I wanted it to be more of the, almost like where my brain goes is always like ancient Egypt, ancient Greece side of things. So it's that mythical beings, Percy Jackson almost kind of thing. Not once in that does it take hold of the mythical part of it. It just goes into the unknown, for example.
But I think it is smart enough. So you said title card. The prompt talks about, and their lives take a twist to the mythical or whatever. That's not this scene, because it has understood the brief of opening scene. I still stand by that these AI scripts are not... It's not even replaceable, because I don't even think we're even close to that. I just think they don't understand... They are... What's the word? Combinations. They're just a stripping down of things that have come before and reorganising them into new words and new ways. It doesn't feel like anything about this is new. This feels like something that exists. Whereas to some degree, and no, these aren't like groundbreaking scripts or anything like that, but the first script, your script, feels new. Feels like something I haven't read before, and that is it because it comes from you and your experience. If I wrote a script, it would be different than your script, not because we've not understood the brief or anything like that, because we have everything we bring with it into the script, all our experience, all our previous things. But we don't just watch a film and go, let's memorize those lines. We had feelings when we watched that, and we carry the feelings with us rather than the quotes. I can't remember half of the words in films I like, but I can tell you what happens and I understand the feelings and what they tried to create.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the AI is missing. I'm curious about where this goes. I'm curious about what other experiments we can do. But for now, I'm going to say that I won again. I'm good at this.
Yeah, AI's
and
bad.
I didn't cheat. And I'm sure people, viewer number 1 and only, will think I've cheated, but I didn't cheat, and I actually got it.
Yeah.
And I think I had it well before I noticed New York.
Yeah, and like, I think on my side, when preparing these things, I'm thinking of two things. I'm thinking, first of all, I want to make sure you're going into it without any knowledge of what's going on. So you didn't read it beforehand, you didn't get to see what was going on. I didn't really explain thought processes behind decisions or anything like that. It's also important that you've only read one script of mine before. And that was a long time ago, right when I was first starting. So
probably
you don't...
only film script. It's probably only film script I've actually read. Well, in a significant entirety.
But
I've read bits.
What I'm getting at is you don't know my voice either. No. So it's not like you're trying to recognise an AI versus
you specifically.
A specific way of writing that you recognise. Now, it will be interesting to see if that does continue, because I think just like the AI, I have my own markers of how I write things and stuff like that. And so I think later on in the series of these, maybe it does get easier, but it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for listening. Have a lovely evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are in the world.
Jim Shesh, whatever.
See you later.
Bye.